Hello and welcome back. And before we start today's video, just a little bit behind the curtain here at NAS Compares. You see, we've been at this gig for quite a number of years at this point. We started out as just wanting to compare NASes, and over the years we have diversified, looking at different kinds of storage media and actually deep diving individual systems a great deal more. But at our heart, what we do is we compare NAS devices. And despite all of that, I'll say right now, I never knew this would happen. I just assumed that UGREEN, a company that not so long ago I only knew with chargers and adapters, and Minisforum, a company that just made mini PCs, I never thought I'd make this video where I compare the UGREEN DXP4800 Plus, one of comfortably the most popular NASes of the last 18 months, versus one of the most expected, sought after and demanded NASes from Minisforum, the N5. Yet, in autumn 2025, these are the same price and are challenging the status quo in turnkey NAS solution from the likes of Synology, QNAP, Asus, TerraMaster and more. And in this video, I'm hoping to help you decide which one best deserves your money and your data. Now, both of them arrive at about $599, and for that you are getting very different architectures and very different scalability between them. We're going to talk hardware and software, of course, but at least in terms of price point, we have a few things we have to point out. Number one, the UGREEN option here arrives with memory in that price. This one doesn't. For that price point, you get an operating system SSD or 128 gig SSD inside that utilizes the Minisforum software or Minis Cloud OS, but you have to buy your own RAM. It costs a little bit more, but we have to factor that in. So at the very least, very least, at price over the table, right now the UGREEN is winning, because the UGREEN not only is a cheaper price point and is available, crucially, more on that later on, but on top of that, it arrives with that memory already included with the price, and they do a lot of promos and offers on their side. Now, in terms of availability, it might sound great you try to choose between these two. We also have to touch on the fact that the UGREEN, depending on where you are in the world, isn't truly a universal statement, but the DXP4800 Plus is way more available around the world. It still isn't universally available, I'm sorry Australia, but it is still widely more available than the Minisforum N5 and indeed the N5 Pro more powerful version. Indeed, I would say Minisforum were not prepared for how popular this was going to be, because the sodding thing is nearly always sold out. So that's another little factor to keep in mind. But what about the hardware architecture? Well, let's talk about what's on the outside, because that matters, right? Well, the UGREEN arrives with 4 hard drive bays there on the front, lockable click and load trays. Again, drives go inside, supporting 2.5 inch and 3.5 inch drive media. They've gone for a very kind of similar 4-bay design, but it's their own with metal all the way round their edge, with an SD card reader on the front, USB 10 gig port, USB-A 10 gig port, and on the rear we've got a removable vent fan for dust control, a 2.5 gig, a 10 gig port, another USB Type-C, and some more USB Type-A's and an HDMI output there. Alongside that, we have 2 M.2 NVMe bays there on the base. I already removed the panel, that's normally always covered, and these M.2 bays are Gen 3x2, and they give Gen 3x4, and give us a decent amount of performance for use in caching or storage pools, alongside 2 SODIMM memory slots, DDR5. Now, I'm going to be unpopular here and say it. The Minisforum N5 beats every single connection on there, with the exception of the SD card slot. Let me explain. If you remove the front panel, we have 5 SATA hard drive slots. Again, each one of them click and load. But alongside that, the front of the system also has a USB Type-C and a Type-A port, but this one is USB 4, a 40 gigabits per second USB connection. We've got, LEDs there on the front, but overall, we've got a decent amount of connectivity already out the gate. Now, on the rear, we find here a 10 gig network port and a 5 gig network port. So we've already got greater network connectivity out the gate, but crucially another USB 4 port and a PCIe upgrade slot to add even more. It's a bigger unit, certainly, and by the way, that is reflected in the noise and the temperature, but nonetheless, there's a lot more there. But even if you're not factoring in more hard drive storage, a PCIe upgrade there, similar HDMI output, but more importantly, the USB 4 connections can also be used now with direct connectivity with Mac and Windows to improve your connectivity point to point on this. But inside, with that lovely removable tray, we also have 3 M.2 slots, not 2, 3 at Gen 4 speed. So faster performing M.2s and more of them. Overall, you cannot argue with the hardware proposition, at least in the conventional sense, being significantly better on the Minisforum. Of course, the Minisforum benefits with over a year, close to a year and a half of development later than the UGREEN. So therefore, the Minisforum does benefit from that, and of course takes advantage of being in development at a later stage. But there's no arguing that at that $595 or $599 price point, the Minisforum N5 is really pushing the boat. But much like I scream at the top of my voice when I look in the mirror in the morning, it's about what's inside that matters sometimes. And inside both of these, we have very different internal hardware architectures. We've already discussed memory, but in the case of the UGREEN arrives with an Intel Alder Lake Pentium processor, the 8505, a 5-core, 6-thread CPU, and that arrives alongside support of up to 64 gig of DDR5 memory, as mentioned. This, on the other hand, has got an AMD architecture, a Ryzen architecture there, the 255, and that CPU has got more cores and more threads, and also supports up to 96 gig of memory. Neither one of them support ECC memory, but at the very least they both support DDR5 SODIMM. Now, the CPUs between them, if we're going to think about general power and graphical handling, the Minisforum CPU is better. The Minisforum CPU has more cores, it has more power cores for that matter, and efficiency cores. It also has the ability to handle graphics better with a greater graphical integrated graphics engine on board. But in terms of power consumption, and we've done reviews, by the way, of both of these devices, more precisely the Ultra version of that, and we've done a review of the same CPU inside this in another system, we know enough to know the UGREEN Pentium has a higher maximum TDP when pushed at 50 to 55 watts, but in idle and when it wants to spin down to power efficiency mode is lower during those idle times, which is going to be important in a 24/7 environment. Whereas the Minisforum, its base power consumption is lower than this one's peak, but also higher than when this is in idle. So again, there's some give and take all the way through. For example, if you want to run AI processes, I have no hesitation in recommending the N5 overall, but that's not going to be for everyone. And depending on your utilization, that internal hardware is either going to leave you impressed or concerned. Next up, we've got to talk about support. We already sort of touched on availability there earlier on, but we've got to talk about support between these two brands. Both of them are based in Shenzhen, China, and both of them have got international shipping and international availability between the two of them. But it has to be said that UGREEN has better or in-region representation with more offices already allocated in different regions of the US and Europe. I think there's one in Germany and one in the UK just for Europe alone. I think there may even be another one in Italy. And just general better reach in terms of its hardware, but also its support overall. Minisforum, on the other hand, because they're largely out of Shenzhen, they do have representation in the US, but it's nowhere near as formidable as that of UGREEN. Both of them are big brands, but at least in the world of NAS, UGREEN have just got a greater stretch right now. And when you go on websites like Reddit, when you go on support forums, generally, and you can only really casually step back and look at all of these things because there's no strict analytics we can point at. Generally, it appears that the UGREEN support has the edge in terms of replacement, in terms of warranty repair. Again, we can only be general about this because we can only go by feedback online, and generally, as we all know, you can only see negative feedback because something has to be above and beyond for positive feedback to be given. But still, overall, the edge seems to be for UGREEN. Next up, let's talk about software, because both of these brands have actually got quite a lot in common. They're quite new in the market, and both of them are trying to get some of that overspill QNAP Synology money, because both of them don't really have the length and breadth of time in the NAS industry that those bigger players have. Between the two of them, UGREEN have been in the NAS market, at least in the East, since 2020-2021, and in the West, around about 2023 into 2024. Whereas Minisforum have only just entered this market, and they used, I believe, PCIe as the base for their operating system. Again, not dissimilar to what UGREEN have done, but UGREEN have expanded on their baseline operating system quite significantly, styling themselves arguably, for good or for bad, very well and very comparably to that of Synology. Whereas the Miniscloud OS feels a little bit more like Android. It arrives with support of quite unique features in some cases, such as support of ZFS. It also has a wider arrangement of applications and services that are effectively containerized but still one-click installs more than the ones available on the UGREEN platform. However, the UGREEN platform on the whole feels more stable. It feels more polished between the two of them. And again, we are talking about two NAS brands that haven't been in the market as long as the likes of DSM Synology or QTS QNAP, but still nonetheless, between the two of them, the more fluid, seamless experience will likely be the UGREEN. That isn't to say that Miniscloud OS is bad, it isn't, but it's not quite there yet, and it's still going through development. They released this with that operating system being an optional extra when ultimately they know a lot of users are going to go third party. Whereas the UGREEN are trying to get users to use their software overall and are developing in it arguably with a larger amount of, let's say, budget being thrown at the software development. Neither one of these brands has been faced, at least in terms of NAS, a real large-scale security incident, so we can't really gauge them in the way they manage their security enough, although both have two-factor authentication, both have the length and breadth of auto block, digital signing, firewall protection, security scanners and more. But between the two of them, I would still give the slight edge to UGREEN in the software stakes. So that's really what this video comes down to. If what you care about is hardware, I've got no hesitation in recommending the Minisforum N5 between these two. The hardware you get for that price point is just unmatched here. But if what you care about is software and what you care about is an included software in your turnkey solution, the UGREEN is going to be a better value and overall user experience for you. And that's really it. It's software versus hardware. But what do you guys think? If you tried both of these, maybe you're not convinced by these arguments and you want to put your own point ahead. That's what the comments are for. But thank you so much for watching. And if you found this video helpful, and if you were going to buy one of these two devices anyway, please use the links in the description to do so. It's a passive way to support content creators like me and Eddie here at NAS Compares, and it allows us to keep doing what we do because we get a small commission on anything you buy via those links. It costs you nothing extra, and we keep doing this. It's win-win. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.